Despite your prolonged unemployment, you exude an unwarranted confidence, I exclaimed, lifting my gaze from the laptop where I had been diligently working at the dining table. A sharp pang shot through my neck, causing me to cry out in pain as I turned around to find my mocking mother-in-law brandishing a hair iron. I recalled seeing her preparing to go out in the washroom earlier. Now, she was pressing the hot iron against my skin. So even a parasite like you feels the heat, she sneered. I was just testing how thick-skinned you are. You're utterly useless, yet you live such a luxurious life. But I do work hard, I protested, feeling the burn against my neck. Why are you treating me so terribly? You call that working? Staying at home and being lazy is not a job, she retorted. It's about time you stop leeching off us. However, the true parasites were my husband and mother-in-law. Despite paying the $5,000 rent and covering living expenses and allowances for both of them, I endured such treatment. I've reached my limit. Leave this house immediately, she commanded, her tone dripping with disdain. Once I go, I'll never come back, I declared, gathering my belongings. Tears mingled with frustration and pain in my neck as I left my in-laws' house for good. My name is Kelly, 35 years old. It had been 2 years since I got married. Even before marriage, I had been working from home as a freelance writer. After my father's accident, I returned to my parents' home to support them. Gradually, I found success as a freelance writer, earning more than I did in my previous job. During a college reunion, I reconnected with Ben, who would become my husband. Despite our differences, we were drawn to each other, and soon we were married. However, tragedy struck when Ben's father passed away suddenly. We moved in with Ben's mother to support her during this difficult time. Living with my mother-in-law proved to be challenging from the start. Despite my efforts to support her, she never accepted me as Ben's spouse. Her constant criticisms and sarcasm wore me down. But despite the hardships, I remained resilient. I packed my belongings and left, determined to build a better life for myself. I pondered Mary's criticisms but obediently responded with a simple yes in the evening. She questioned, "Did you buy these ingredients from that store? How can you make such a meal with ingredients from there?" It was from a nearby luxury supermarket. "I'm sorry if it didn't suit your taste, Mary. It's just a simple salad. Ben likes it, so I often make it. But yes, that supermarket is quite expensive," I explained. My goodness, how embarrassing. Act in a way that doesn't bring shame to our family. You never know who's watching, she sighed deeply, shaking her head in disappointment. In that moment, I made a firm vow to be recognized by my mother-in-law. From grooming to cooking skills, I worked hard every day. However, her critical eyes never softened. Initially, I took her sarcasm and cold words lightly, but they gradually began to feel crushing. I felt invalidated and powerless. I wanted to confide in Ben, but our life together had changed. We used to enjoy our time as a couple daily, but since moving in, our opportunities to see each other had decreased. "Sorry, I've been really busy with work lately," he said tiredly. Hearing this, I felt unable to speak my mind. But being human, I have my limits. I felt the need to share my stress with Ben. "Hey, I have something to discuss," I began. "Oh, I actually have something to talk to you about too. I quit my job 3 months ago." "What? Quit? What do you mean?" I exclaimed. "Don't worry. I've already started another job. Remember the select shop I always wanted to open? I finally launched it. I'm co-managing it with Senior Eric," he revealed. "You never mentioned any of this before," I responded, surprised. Senior Eric, a widely respected figure in our university circle, was admired for his leadership and charisma. He had successfully developed and sold a game app in college and started a startup with friends, showcasing his talents. Ben, in his usual gentle tone but looking slightly guilty, said, "I didn't want to worry you or Mom. I'll work harder from now on. Will you support me?" I was moved by his words yet hesitant. "I'll support you, but about the rent for this house, can you cover all of it?" Ben looked at me earnestly and pleaded, "Please, Kelly. This has always been my dream. It's taking longer than expected to turn a profit. That's why I want to invest more in advertising. I'll definitely get this business on track before we leave here. I need your help to do that." Moved by his passion and earnestness, I couldn't refuse. I could afford the rent with my income, and fortunately, we had some savings. More importantly, I had never forgotten the day I chose to marry him, sharing and empathizing with his dreams and passion. "If you say so, I understand, but only until the lease on this rental ends. Also, I want to know more about the store you're running," I agreed. "Of course, thank you," Ben said, showing me the website of his select shop. I was impressed by its charm. "Is there anything I can help with?" I offered, but Ben firmly declined. "I want you to focus on your work, and please don't tell my mother about this." "I don't want to worry her," he requested. Necessarily, with this new development, thoughts of my mother-in-law completely left my mind. I was eager to support Ben's business, but the monthly expenses I had to cover kept increasing gradually. Managing the entire household budget, financially aiding my husband, and even providing an allowance to my mother-in-law became solely my responsibility. My only hope was for the rental contract to end quickly. "Kelly, could you put off your computer work for a bit and do some cleaning? Since you're staying here, you should be more proactive with the household chores," my mother-in-law instructed. I hurriedly replied, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mother. I'll start as soon as I finish this job." "This is your job. Enough excuses. Get it done quickly." "We have guests coming this afternoon. After you're done cleaning, please leave the house," she insisted. My relationship with my unaware mother-in-law remained unchanged over time. On days when she had guests, I always had to vacate the house after finishing the cleaning. It seemed I was bothering her. Fortunately, I could work anywhere with my laptop, which was a small consolation. However, one day held a different outcome. When I returned home in the evening, my mother-in-law, looking satisfied, greeted me with, "Welcome back. I tidied up your room." Confused, I rushed to my office. The room was indeed tidied, but my belongings were organized. In the center were a large suitcase and 2 duffel bags. "What does this mean, Mother?" I asked. "This room was initially prepared for guests. I can't accept someone with your lack of housekeeping skills using it. If you want to use this room, you'll have to pay an appropriate fee. If you don't like that, leave immediately. Don't expect to live luxuriously here for free," she declared. I swallowed my words. Why must I endure such treatment? As I silently bowed my head, my mother-in-law said with satisfaction, "I'll say it again. I don't accept you as Ben's wife." With that, she huffed and returned to the living room. Tears welled up in my eyes from frustration. I tried to contact Ben, but he didn't answer his phone. After messaging him about the incident, he replied, "Please bear with it a little longer." Unable to contain my anger, I poured out everything to Ben when he returned late at night. "Just hold on a little longer. I'm stressed with work too. Don't worry about my mother. It's just a bit more endurance," he said. "I'm paying the full rent, and now she wants me to pay for my room too. I can't tolerate her unreasonable demands any longer," I protested. After hearing this, Ben hurriedly tried to call me. "I'm really sorry. I'll talk to her once we leave here. You won't have to see her again. Please just bear with it for a little while longer," he pleaded. "Soon, and then I'll never have to see her again." Ben's words slightly eased my anger. The next day, Ben seemed to be talking to his mother. Before he left, we had breakfast together, but there were no usual sarcastic remarks from my mother-in-law. Since my room was tidied up, I decided to continue working at the dining table. "Are you leaving today?" My mother-in-law's words made me look up from my computer. Instantly, I felt a sharp pain in my neck. "Ouch, that's hot," I screamed, turning around to see my mother-in-law with a smirk, holding a hair iron. "What are you doing?" I exclaimed. That was all I could say as I held my painful neck and rushed to get a cooling pack from the fridge. Thinking back, my mother-in-law had been getting ready to go out in the washroom earlier. She had used the hair iron she was holding against my neck. So you can feel the heat too. I wanted to see how thick-skinned you are, living such a luxurious life, yet being so useless. I work hard too. Why would you do something so terrible? My mother-in-law scolded. Working? You're just using your at-home job as an excuse to slack off. Nothing but an unemployed person. It's about time you consider our situation and become independent, she added. In reality, I was the one bearing the rent and living expenses, yet I couldn't understand. I couldn't comprehend why I was being treated this way. Before I knew it, I found myself glaring at her. What's with that look? The look of a pitiful person. I've reached my limit. Leave this house immediately, otherwise, I don't know what I'll do next. Am I really allowed to leave? I questioned. I won't come back here ever again, you know. Yes, that's fine. I'm fed up with taking care of poor people like you, she responded with intense pain and disappointment evident in her tone. Filled with a mix of emotions, I cried as I packed my things. Since my mother-in-law had already organized my belongings the day before, it didn't take long. I no longer cared about the fate of this house. I left my in-laws' home without looking back. After receiving treatment at the hospital, I went to my usual cafe to calm down. The spacious table arrangement and quiet environment were ideal for focusing on work. As I contemplated whether to contact Ben, I was suddenly approached. Kelly, is that you? To my surprise, it was Senior Eric. It's been a while. How's Ben doing, Senior Eric? Long time no see. Ben is in your care. I heard you were the co-owner, he remarked. I apologized for not greeting him earlier, explaining that I'd only helped with the website design at Ben's request. However, Senior Eric was taken aback, saying, Co-owner? What do you mean? I just helped with the website design on Ben's request. I was shocked, he lied. Then Senior Eric mentioned, I heard you were the sponsor. This revelation surprised me. Ben had rented a different apartment and seemed to have worked hard for the first few months. However, he had others manage the inventory, shipping, and promotion for the online shop from the beginning. Despite Senior Eric's advice to do it himself, Ben insisted it wasn't the role of a businessman. As a result, there was no increase in foot traffic or sales, only mounting expenses. According to Senior Eric, Ben was now deeply involved in internet business, paying high consultant fees. He was living extravagantly, acting like a business owner and sometimes mistreating his juniors. I was at a loss for words. The reason I had to cover my mother-in-law's allowance was that they had used up my father-in-law's inheritance. Ben's recent requests for financial support were probably because his funds were running low. He hadn't told me about the inheritance, perhaps for that reason. Doubts connected with Senior Eric's words, and everything became clear. I got up, thanked him, and left the cafe. Before I knew it, I was in front of my parents' house. Seeing me with my luggage, my father looked surprised. Tears overflowed as I saw the faces of my parents, who I had been holding back my sorrow from. Tell us what happened. Your mom and I are always on your side, my father said. That's right. You always try too hard on your own. Their warm words made me cry again. Crying, I told my parents everything. The terrible treatment from my mother-in-law and the fact that I was bearing all the expenses for my in-laws' house. My parents were both outraged and cried with me. There's no need to go back to your in-laws' house. Live for yourself from now on, my father said. His words deeply resonated with me. After talking about everything, I felt a weight lifted from my heart. What had I been living for these past months? The only message from Ben was a short one, asking, "Where are you now?" After ignoring several similar messages, his attempts to contact me stopped altogether. My existence must have been just that insignificant, more than sadness. I felt a firm resolve just by having a meal with my parents. I could feel the warmth of a family. Maybe what I had been seeking were such simple moments of happiness. While staying at my parents' house, I gradually felt like I was gaining myself. About 2 weeks later, Ben called, probably because the rent payment was due. Kelly, Where are you? Have things calmed down with Mom? She feels bad about it. Aren't you coming back soon? He inquired. I'm at my parents' house now. I plan to live here from now on. Your mother said she's tired of taking care of a poor person like me. And I'm not going back. Let's get a divorce, I calmly conveyed. Wait, why divorce? If living with Mom is the problem, let's talk it out. I'm coming to pick you up. Let's talk in person. Why should we talk now when there was no contact before? And how's your business? Ben responded. After that question, there was a moment of silence. Actually, I'm seeking advice from someone knowledgeable in business. There might be a big plan realized next month. That's it. Let's go look for a new place to live before that, Ben suggested. Don't change the subject. You haven't told me anything important. That's why I don't want to talk anymore. I'll write the divorce papers and send them to you, I said and hung up the phone. However, that night, Ben suddenly appeared at my parents' house. I talked to him through the gap in the door with the chain on. Kelly, please don't be mad. Let's go back. Mom feels bad about it. Come on, stop sulking. I was kicked out of the house by your mother. Don't take it seriously. Not take it seriously? Did you know why I left the house? Your mother pressed a hot hair iron against my neck and burned me. I don't know what else might happen, and there's no way I can go back, I explained, showing him the burn mark on my neck. Did Mom really do that? I'm sorry. I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Mom told me it was just a simple fight. I'm really sorry. Are you okay? Ben apologized. A simple fight? His flippant words made my anger boil over. I had planned to decide on a divorce without facing him, but my indignation overflowed. I felt the same anger towards both my husband and mother-in-law. I thought of blaming them thoroughly. The outrage in my heart seemed to burn. Anyway, I'm not coming back. You should go home too. I'll contact you again tomorrow, I asserted. Really? Will you actually contact me? I can't accept a divorce without even discussing it. If you don't contact me, I'll come back tomorrow, Ben said before leaving. I prepared and arranged to meet with Ben and my mother-in-law 3 days later in the afternoon. The place for the discussion was a cafe restaurant on the 30th floor of a luxury hotel. On the day, I dressed in a high-end brand dress, revealing my neck and styling my hair up. My mother-in-law looked displeased at the sight of me. Thank you for gathering today. I have reserved afternoon tea, so please enjoy it. I smiled at my mother-in-law and Ben. Ben seemed a bit relieved at my calm demeanor. Soon, tea and small appetizers were served at our table. Before we started eating, my mother-in-law began to speak. Kelly, I'm truly sorry about last time. I was wrong. Ben scolded me harshly. You'll forgive me, won't you? She pleaded. I didn't respond immediately and quietly continued eating my appetizer. Then, I turned my neck to show the burn scar. I can forgive you, but not until this scar fades. Also, are you aware that Ben quit his job? Ben shook in surprise, and my mother-in-law looked at him in astonishment. What do you mean he quit? He's been saying he's busy every day. He's busy right now. He's an honorable businessman. Wait a minute, Ben. My mother-in-law panicked. What do you mean, businessman? Did you start your own business, Ben? Explain yourself. As my mother-in-law interrogated him, I smiled contentedly while watching Ben struggle to make excuses. At that moment, the tea stand was brought to our table. I enjoyed the delicious-looking sweets while watching Ben and my mother-in-law argue. The view from the luxury apartment was great, but the view from this 30th floor cafe was also special. By the way, Ben, what have you been engrossed in lately? I inquired. I heard from Senior Eric that you quit the select shop. Is that true? I questioned Ben, who immediately lost color in his face, looking both surprised and scared. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law tightly gripped his arm, confused and repeatedly asking what happened. Why would you do that? I know everything. Ultimately, you were more obsessed with being a successful person than a businessman, right? Despite having no business sense, you just impulsively went ahead and ended up spending all the inheritance your father left, didn't you? I confronted Ben, while my mother-in-law's voice filled with suspicion and anger. Yes, exactly. Ben has used up all your inheritance as well, right? So, our household finances are completely depleted because of Ben, I explained, causing my mother-in-law to sink back into the sofa in shock and despair. I have been covering all the expenses for the house. Even the allowance you thought Ben was giving you came from my wallet. In addition to that, I've been paying for Ben's expenses while he's been gallivanting around as a businessman, I disclosed, watching their reactions carefully. Don't worry, Mom. With Kelly's income, we'll manage, Ben attempted to reassure her. But I wasn't having any of it. Don't joke. I heard you're getting into another business. We're already at the bottom, spending money and just playing around. Stop it now, I asserted firmly, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on us. As the cafe fell silent, I finished the tea left in my cup in one gulp and declared, I can no longer take care of you two, who are now penniless. You will need to take care of next week's rent payment, and regarding the divorce, let's proceed firmly through a lawyer. Ben pleaded tearfully. I don't want a divorce. Please don't do this. But my mind was already made up. My mother-in-law's face trembled with paleness as she begged for my help. You said before that you didn't accept me as family, didn't you, Mary? As compensation for the burn, I would like you to start with this payment. I hope you still have this allowance, I stated firmly, leaving the two of them in the hotel. Ben remained silent, ultimately saying nothing. Looking up at the high-rise floors from the ground, I hoped they felt the sensation of being cast down from heaven to earth, marking the end of my revenge. Afterward, we got divorced. Ben resisted at first, but when I threatened to report my mother-in-law to the police, he quickly agreed. I couldn't forgive my mother-in-law, but her disappearance from my sight would erase her from my memory. For that reason, I demanded a substantial amount from Ben for emotional distress. Later, they apparently moved to a cramped apartment. However, the relationship between my wasteful ex-husband and betrayed mother-in-law seems strained. Aiming for independence, my once arrogant mother-in-law is now reportedly doing part-time cleaning work. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought of that scene. Currently, Ben is struggling with debt and working multiple part-time jobs at night. It seems that working as an employee was more suited to his true nature. The active personality of Ben that I once found attractive was, from another angle, just impulsive and shallow foolishness. Living in the luxury apartment and the inheritance from my father-in-law must have revealed his flaws more clearly. I continue to work actively from my parents' home. I met with Senior Eric later and conveyed to him the details and my gratitude. He appreciated my writing skills, and now I am receiving work from him. For the time being, I plan to focus on living for myself with my parents.